Hey gang, it is Steel Talk Sunday. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it. What I'm doing today is a bit of a roundup video, I guess. I do my edge retention testing, I do some stain testing, whatever. It's bro science, as someone called it, which is fine. It's got limited value, I guess, but I think it gives you a good rough overall expectation of how long steel's going to last. When I choose to cut rope on a wooden board, whether it's the rope or the wooden board that's doing the edge destruction, I use the same ones every time. So I'll put the list of numbers down below that I've got, and of course there's a playlist on my channel where you can see every test in full. I do speed it up because otherwise it would be brain bashingly dull, but you can see everything in full in my playlist as well. So with that introduction out of the way, what I'm talking about today is just some things that have come up. I get some really good comments and I get some really good input from people about everything. People like-minded, like myself. I think I'm slightly on the spectrum, and I think this is my kind of focus. I get like genuine single-minded excitement when I have a new steel to put on my rope cutting test, and it is almost the detriment of everything else I'm doing that day. So yeah, but I've had some good comments, and the best comment that I did want to cover today is a fellow said that videos like mine and mindsets such as mine are kind of making a school of thought that isn't particularly healthy. That is that edge retention is the only thing worth paying a lot of money for a knife for. Which I don't think is true, and it's unfortunate if I have pushed that logic. I do try and hedge it by I've done some videos, like my How Low Can You Go video, I more or less said that VG10 I'm generally pretty happy with as a user still. But anyway, so what I've thought I would do today is I've got 4 reasons on each side of the fence. 4 for people who, the edge retention does matter, like the four instances where you want your Maximet, your ZDP, your 10V, all that sort of stuff, and then 4 where it doesn't really matter. So trying to bring some balance back to the force. So without further ado, let's get into the 4 where max edge retention does matter to folks. So number 1 is when your knife is going to be used against heavy abrasives. That is where you probably have a vocation or a job where you're cutting a lot of cardboard, a lot of rope, carpet, stuff that really is gonna destroy your knife edge if it is made of 8CR13 over K390, for example. And industries like this, you're probably going to have 2 options that will be the path of least pain. One is getting a good big knife like the Spyderco Police that has a lot of long-lasting edge that will probably last you, several shifts before you need to touch it back up again. Good idea. And the other, and the less fun for I guess us knife guys, is just get a disposable like razor blade style knife where you just break off the blades and move on to the next one at the end of the shift. Maybe a bit more cost effective and practical, but it's probably a little bit less fun than this one here. But that's probably that's a main group of people who the Maximet probably will do right for. The second is for folks, the second type of people are the folks who don't sharpen their own knives, and they send all their knives off to like Instagram sharpeners or people they know to get sharpened and get like mirror polished edges on them. These folks will find that the really high edge retaining steels will save them cash and save them postage and time with their knives away by having less requirement to be sent. So say if all of your knives are made of CTS XHP or higher, you'll probably find that you are sending them away less to KnifeWorks or Knife Doctor or whatever knife sharpening service you're using. So it'll be a long-term sort of benefit there. Another thing just relating to sharpening is that if you have I've got this in my hand, an XHP blade and an AUS 8 blade, this one will need sharpening more than this one. And sharpening actually takes material off the blade, we all know this. My AUS 8 Falcon has actually started to retreat back a bit. So the blade becomes a consumable. I've used this knife probably more than any other pocket knife. It's great, and it's still got lots of life left in it, but it'll come to the point where this blade is actually, there's not enough left of it. Probably in the next 3 or 4 years, if I keep using it like I'm using it, whereas this one won't. This will take a lot longer to get to that point. So yeah, just definitely something to keep in mind, just with regard to sharpening and sort of the frequency that you have to send it off, but also the consumability of the actual blade. The next group of people who it would matter to are people who have a smaller collection of sort of high usage blades. So these folk will have a maybe 5 knife collection like this, and this is a really good mix of steels for a sort of mid-range, high usage collection. They've all got good steels that have mid to high edge retention, but also not completely breaking the bank, and not so high edge retention that it's going to be hard to sharpen or anything like that. So really good sort of mid-level collection just here. I've got more knives in this obviously, but a good mix of steels there: LC200N, K390, S35VN, CATS XHP, and RWL34. So these, like I was having a smaller collection of user-only blades. That way you've got a higher rotation. So say in a week, these will all get carried once or twice a week. So you're getting that fair bit of usage. If you had, say, 20 knives, it's going to matter less, because that's 20 different rotation days. So there's edge sharpenings are going to come around a lot less. So higher edge retention is better if you have fewer knives, in my opinion. And the fourth, and this is probably a less tangible one, and these are the peaks of the world. This is where you've got like a performance-oriented brain, and you just get a kick out of knowing what the thing in your hand can do. Some people have this performance-oriented brain about other things, like I guess the easiest example is cars. Some people just want that car that can reach 240 kilometers an hour, even though realistically they're probably never actually going to. They just like to know that it can. They'll have hints of its greatness from time to time. So say when they need to overtake someone quickly, that high torque, powerful engine's going to let you get out and back in really quickly, all that sort of stuff. But it's generally something that you're never actually going to realize, but you like knowing that you could if you had to. And this is me. I mean, frankly, I think I'm more or less. I've realized I'm probably more or less on the spectrum, and this is my focus, I think. So I get a real kick out of having this. This in my head, that all of my knives here are high performance in terms of edge. Less important to me is the sort of either the finish of the knives and other things that can sort of also be performance type attributes. But some people really seek that. I want all my knives to be highly stainless. I want all my knives to be really tough. That's a good big one with the fixed blade folks. They go for tough. I want to be able to hit my knife with a sledgehammer and it'd be fine. So whatever kind of performance mindset you've got, this may very well be what appeals to you about the Maximets of the world. That being said, I didn't keep my Maximet knife because, frankly, I'm not the most keen sharpener for Maximet. It is a bit trickier than some. I don't have the diamond tools to do it, and it wasn't so important to me that I went out and bought diamond tools and bought certain equipment for it. So I guess I'm not that far along, but I can certainly understand the folks that are. So that's number 4, and that's probably the more personal or the more personality based one. So there you go. Anyway, let's get into the 4 folks who doesn't matter at all to, or has lesser importance. The first instance where edge retention is not going to be as important is when, and I'm holding this even though it has pretty good edge retention, but it's an example. It's when the attribute you are seeking for your knife is quite often at odds with high edge retention. So some attributes that are odds with high edge retention, there's a few of them. Often stain resistance doesn't go hand in hand with edge retention, because a lot of edge retention, the simplest way to get high edge retention is to put lots and lots of carbon in the blade, and then you've only got 100% of a blade. So say if you put your carbon all the way up to 3%, like they do in ZDP 189 for example, you need to put a whole bunch of chromium in there to even keep it relatively stainless. So the stainlessness on ZDP, therefore, because they have to have all this other stuff in there as well, isn't going to be as high. So therefore, it's probably not going to be the best for like a high, aquatic knife, for example. And when they do put ZDP in kitchen knives, they clad it with high stainlessness steels on each side, like 400 series stainlesses and whatnot. So there's that. Other instances, say custom makers, they want knives that they can bring up to a really high polish. Maximet is quite tricky to polish, I understand. It's much better just left tooled or stonewashed or whatever. So say instances where you might want a really sort of mirror finish knife, going to be a lot harder to get that on the Maximat, a lot more time, money for both the maker and the end user. So they'll probably go with something like 154cm or S35 VM or something like that you can bring up to a higher polish with greater ease. So there's that as well. The second point is when you buy a lot of knives because you're more keen on sampling designs rather than, absolutely, not to belittle, but rather than actually use them. If you're more of a pure collector, then what may be more interesting to you is what the different knife makers are making for tactile experience and appearance and all that sort of stuff. Of course, nothing wrong with that at all. So you see, here's two CRKT knives, both Voxnays designs, funnily enough, the Pilar and the Noma. But these are two really different knives that for both of these would cost you in America probably about $60, so $30 each, whatever. So for $60 anywhere else, you could get like a Delica, So really, if you're looking to own and try a lot of different knives and just see what the designers are doing and what's out there, then forgetting edge retention and just going with a brand like CRKT, which uses pretty basic materials, you're going to get more things in hand to be able to, experience and, maybe you'll find a maker that really, you really like, and you might end up seeking one of their custom knives or something like that, or maybe you just want lots of knives. Maybe you want 40 knives. You carry one each day. It's not going to really matter what steel it is because you're probably not going to use it enough to really dull any of them too quickly anyway. So that's certainly a completely valid and quite a large section of the knife community, no doubt. Number 3 is that you do all your own sharpening, and your consumables and your time aren't unlimited. So if you did all your own sharpening and all of your knives were Maximat, or all of your knives were 10V or even ZDP, you're going to find that you need to go through, your stones, they'll convex out quicker. Your the films that you put on your Edge Pro stones will last, and you need to just be replenishing your stocks of things more often, because the high wear resistance knives, they're wear resistant against the things you want, but also wear resistant against the things you wish they weren't. So that's all your stones, all your sharpening apparatuses and things like that. So say, what have I got here? K390. This took a fair few passes on the Tormek. This isn't the worst by any stretch. Say M4 is a little bit harder to sharpen. Maximat's probably a fair bit harder to sharpen. Some stuff you need to actually go and buy specialized equipment to do. And I mean, this is still fine on stones, K390, but if every knife was this, then your stones would probably need have a higher turnaround of things. And also, just to do it, takes about twice as long, 3 times as long even. HCR13 MOV, you can touch this up in 5 minutes. To do the same level of touch up on, say, XHP, probably about 15. So just if you've got like a family and you've got kids running around and you can't sneak away to your shed all the time to put mirrored edges on, CTS XHP or higher, then edge retention probably isn't going to be as important to you. You're probably going to be in that camp I was just talking about, where you just have a whole variety of, say, lower edge retaining knives that you can keep sharp and maintain in the few minutes a day that you can get to do it. And number 4 is that you just want to have a lot of different knives and experience lots of different knives, and the steel arms race just does not interest you at all. And that is completely fine. I think this hobby does get a lot of numbers-oriented people. I'm not sure why. The more you look at anything, I guess the more performance you start to want to see, and the more you spend on something, I guess the more you want to be boastful of it or positive about it. And I think there is an element of that which makes us buy expensive knives that hold their edges very long and talk about it often. So there's that. But you might be the opposite to that, but you're still just as much of a knife enthusiast as anyone who's in the first camp. And there's probably more people like that. A lot of prominent YouTubers, like some of the best, like Jeff at the Cutlery Lover channel. He's not a steel snob. He from what I can see, he loves his Buck 110 with its 420 HC steel. It's like one of his favorites. He loves all knives, and if you love all knives, then you can't afford to be a steel snob, because a lot of knives are like old patterns. Like if you want to be a traditionals guy, it's just not going to factor in at all, because they're all going to be made of 1095 steel. If you just want to have like JW's Bullets and Blades, another great channel, he's into collecting like the old Japanese knives. I mean, good luck finding powder steel. Yeah, they'll be made of AUS 6 and ATS 34 and that's the stuff from the 80s and 90s, but you just can't afford to be a snob if you're that type of collector enthusiast. So that's the other group of people that just aren't going to be interested, and they are no more or less valid as knife enthusiasts as the people who want to know, how many bits of rope their knives can cut. Idiots like me. So that's probably the main, and probably the one thing I do want to drive home is that, it's not particularly a matter of better or worse. It's just some people seek different things from their knives. So that being said, I'm just going to wind up this video by doing a few stat drops. We all love them. If you're like me, you're watching my channel, you probably like the stat drops. So let's get into some top 5s and whatnot. Alrighty, so the best edge retaining steels so far in all of my testing are Maximet CPM 10V, this is in order, CPM 20 CV, ZDP 189 and M390. So all of those cut over 300 times through rope, really, really good. Maximet completely topping out at 563 or something ridiculous like that, completely bonkers. Most balanced of all of those would be the 20 CV and the M390 because they're both really, really rust resistant as well. ZDP 189 is great but does tarnish, and CPM 10V is just rare and expensive, so hard to come across. The K2 was one of the only production knives I've seen with that steel in it. Some great balanced mid-cost steels. I've got CTS XHP, LMAX, S35VN, LC200N, and 154CM, a non-powder steel that does everything really, really well. Edge retention, corrosion resistance, toughness. You can use it on pretty much any type of knife. Really, really good stuff. Steels that do 2 out of 3 things really, really well. And I'm simplifying. There's more than 3 attributes of steel, of course. But if you look at the main ones, Sal Glesser says edge retention, rust resistance, toughness, choose 2 or pay a lot of money for all 3. So if you're choosing 2, I've got M4, which has really great retention, really great toughness. So all the blade sports folks use M4 in their big choppers because you can hack away at a 2x4 with it and then still do the fine cutting of the toilet roll without it going to complete shit. 3V, very sort of similar, but the toughness is sort of more of a priority, and then the edge retention, great stuff. Bark River can make Bravo ones with it and can reduce the stock by a couple of millimeters in thickness just because it's so tough over the A2, which is already a very tough steel. K390 has great edge retention, has great stability and toughness. So K390 I've had, I think I've said a couple of times, I was opening my lawnmower box, cardboard, down too far, concrete tiles, edge was fine. A little bit of a strop and it's completely back to how it was. Whereas I've done the same thing even with like CPM 20 CV on my Benchmade mini grip a year and a bit ago, and it flattened out the edge immediately. So very, very nice stable steel K390. And then LC200N, this could be my favorite steel just from a personal sense. It's pretty much stain proof and it actually has a really high level of edge retention as well. So really, really good stuff, the LC200N. So great lower cost steels that are just fine for everyday carry as long as you're not paying like huge amounts for little other trade-offs. VG10, D2, CTS BD1 and 14C28N. One thing I've been called out on a couple of times is I don't have a vendetta against N690. That's impossible because it's an inanimate thing, it's a concept and it's a steel. So I don't have a personal issue with any steel because it's a steel and it doesn't have a personality flaw that you could target like that. But what I've said a few times is that N690 is sold really, really expensively sometimes, and it's often marketed that it's some sort of really high edge retaining steel, and it's not. It will perform about as well as like VG10 or BD1 or sort of one of those type of steels, and I just feel like I need to point out, sometimes say a company, like often the European companies will sell it, they'll have 2 knife models, one will be in LMAX and one will be in N690, or one will be in D2 and one will be in N690, and they'll sell them at the same price. N690's got good rust resistance and it's pretty tough, but just be cautious, it's not a super duper steel, that's all. And that's all I really ever mean about that. I'm not super anti it or anything like that. It was just fine with the Spyderco Pingo for sure, because it's like a $80 knife, no worries at all. But just be careful of it, that's all. But yeah, 14C28N I feel is surely it's destined to become like the new budget knife steel of choice. It's obviously got into China. Reiki using it, Real Steel are using it. It's I think it's generally acknowledged. I mean, in my tests it scores probably about 30% higher than 8CR13 MOV in the edge retention, and also it's more stainless. It seems to just be a better performer. So I'm hoping that this does sort of become the new standard, because that's a really good standard to have. I mean, ideally everything would be an S35VN, but of course that'd put the prices up way too much. And if you're in that second group of people that I was talking about, that doesn't interest you anyway particularly. You're not that fussed. You collect knives for different reasons. So that's all good. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little talk about steels. I'll try and do these from time to time, round up everything, so to speak. But overall, be the collector that you want to be. It's not doesn't make you more or less of a knife enthusiast to want the edge retention or to want the nice bone handles and spend your money on the fit and finish. You know what? If you like an N690 blade that was made by a custom maker and everything is perfect on it, then I guess spend it. That's just my opinion. But overall, just do what you want. Don't get too bothered about what I do. If you're not on board with the way I see the world, then see the world your own way. Have a great time. Hopefully you still watch my videos because you can see other things in common with me. But otherwise, good luck to you. Alright guys, I'll see you all on the next one. I'll see you later. Bye.